This video is about solving and graphing one-step and multi-step inequalities. So first, let's review what the inequalities are. So we have four different inequalities. The first one is x is less than 2. X is less than 2 is an arrow pointing to the left with no line under it. So when we go to graph it, we're going to put 2 somewhere in our number line, and we're also going to show where 0 is to know that we can show the different relationship between positive, negatives, and zeros. So I know 0 is going to be somewhere to the left of 2. Then I'm going to graph. So if I have x is less than 2, at 2, I'm going to have an open circle, and then I'm going to shade in the direction of my arrow. So if the arrow is pointing to the left, I would be shading to the left. This shading part, or the arrow above over here, represents all of the numbers then that are less than 2. The next one we have is x is greater than 2. -2. So in this case, it still has no bar underneath it, but this time it's pointing to the right. So we have x is greater than -2. So we're going to put -2 somewhere on our number line. We're also going to put 0 to show that it's bigger than a negative number and know that we know the relationship of negative and positives. Then at -2, this is going to be an open dot again because there's no bar underneath. But this time we're going to shade to the right because our arrow is pointing to the right this time. The next inequality, the difference is that it has a bar underneath it. So this is now x is less than or equal to 0. So this includes 0 on our number line. And now we're going to say that x can be 0 or anything less than that. So instead of having an open dot at 0, we're now going to have a closed dot, and we're still going to follow the shading rule. So it's pointing to the left. So we're going to have our shaded arrow pointing to the left as well. The last inequality then is x is greater than or equal to, because of that bar underneath again, 1. So on this, we're going to have our number line of 1. We're going to have 0 somewhere to the left of it because 0 is smaller than 1. In this case, x is greater than or equal to. Because of the equal to again, we're going to have a closed dot at 1. And then it's greater than. It's pointing to the right, so our shading is going to go to the right. So let's graph each inequality. Now, when you are graphing inequalities, make sure that you use the variable first on the left-hand side. If the variable's not on the left-hand side, you can't graph yet. So in this case, we have g is greater than -5, so we can graph. So we're going to put -5 somewhere on our number line. We're also going to show where 0 is, so 0 is somewhere greater than -5, so it's going to be to the right. If it's a greater than, it is an open dot, and then we shade to the right. Number 2, x is less than or equal to 3. So we're going to put 3 on the number line. We're going to put 0 to the left of that. And then at -3, it's less than or equal to. So because of this bar underneath, this time it's a closed circle. And then we shade to the left. Now, in 3 and 4, it gets a little bit trickier because our variable is not first. So in order to get the variable first, we're going to switch the variable and the number. And then we're going to switch the direction of the sign. So if the direction of the sign was to the left, now it's going to be to the right. So it's still pointing at the same thing it was before. It's still pointing at that 7 in this case. So on our number line, we're going to label 7. We're going to label 0. And then we're going to graph. So at 7, there's a bar underneath it. So it's going to be a closed dot. And it's pointing to the right. So we're going to shade to the right. So number 5 and 6, write an inequality that represents the situation. So in this time we have an open dot above 15, and it's pointing to the right. So we're going to pick a variable. I'm just going to pick x, and I have 15, and then I need my inequality sign. So in this case, it's pointing to the right, so we need a greater than sign, and it's an open circle, so we're not going to put a bar underneath it. So we have x is greater than 15. Which of the following are solutions? So which of these numbers down here are greater than 15? So not -10, 16 is, 7 is not. 15 is not greater than 15. It's equal to 15, but because we don't have the bar underneath it, that's not going to count as a solution. And 19 is a solution because it's bigger than 15. So in number 6, write the inequality below. So in this case, we have our variable in negative 12. This time it's going to be a less than sign because we're shading to the left. And we're going to put a bar underneath it because of a closed dot. So now which one's our solutions? We need numbers that are less than or equal to negative 12. Well, negative 12 is equal to negative 12, so that's a solution this time, thanks to the bar on the bottom. Negative 20 is less than negative 12, so that's a solution. 8 is not, negative 11 is not, and negative 4 is not. So now we're going to start solving for inequalities. So solving for inequalities is very similar to when you're solving a regular equation with an equal sign. However, we remember when we have to graph that the variable needs to end up on the left-hand side. Otherwise, most people will draw their shading going the wrong direction. So remember, the variable always needs to be on the left-hand side. So in number 7, we have x plus 3 is less than 7. So to solve for x, we're going to subtract 3 on both sides, and we get x is less than or equal to 4. So now we can graph that. So we're going to put 4 on the number line. We're going to put 0 to the left of that somewhere. And then above the 4, because there's a bar underneath it, it's going to get a closed dot. And then it's a less than sign, so we're going to shade to the left. Number 8, negative 9 plus m is greater than negative 2. So this time, because it's a negative 9, we're going to add 9 to both sides. So we get m is greater than 7. So on the number line, we have 7, and we're going to have 0 to the left of it somewhere. Now, there is no bar underneath this, so 7 gets an open circle. And then we're going to shade to the right because it's a greater than, and the arrow is pointing to the right. Number 9, so we have x plus negative 5. So because it's plus negative 5, we need to rewrite it so it's 11 is less than or equal to x minus 5. So in order to get x by itself, we're going to add 5 to both sides. So 16 is less than or equal to x. Now, we can't graph this yet because our variable is not first. So in order to get the variable first, we're going to switch the x and the 16, which means we also switch the direction of the sign. So it was pointing to the left, now it's going to point to the right. So we have x is greater than or equal to 16. So on our number line, we're going to put 16, and then we're going to put 0 somewhere to the left. At 16, there's a closed dot because it's greater than or equal to, and then we're going to shade to the right. Now, when multiplying or dividing inequalities, we need to be careful. This is because whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number, we need to flip our symbol. So in number 10, we have 3x is less than or equal to negative 12. In this case, I'm dividing by positive 3, so my sign stays the same direction. So x is less than or equal to negative 4. So on the number line, we have negative 4. To the right somewhere, we're going to put 0 because 0 is a bigger number than negative 4. So above the negative 4, it gets a closed dot because of the bar underneath for less than or equal to. And then we're going to shade to the left because it's a less than equation. Number 11, we have negative 2 over 3f is greater than or equal to negative 6. So in order to get rid of a fraction, remember we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by negative 3 over 2. Now, because we multiplied by a negative number, we need to flip our inequality sign. So when I rewrite my problem, it's now f is less than or equal to, and we can multiply. Negative 6 times 3 is 18. We can put a 1 underneath, so we have 18 over 2, which really means f is less than or equal to 9. So on our number line, we're going to have 9. We're going to have 0 to the left of 9 somewhere. It's a less than or equal to. So again, above 9 is going to be a closed dot because of the bar underneath. And we're going to shade to the left. Number 12, m3 is less than or equal to m over negative 7. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 7. Because we multiplied by negative 7, again, our sign has to flip. So this becomes negative 21 is greater than m. Now remember, I can't graph until my variable is first. So this time, this problem is going to be a double flip where we're going to flip the m and the 21 and change the direction of the sign again. So we have m is less than negative 21. So on the number line, I'm going to put negative 21. I'm going to put 0 somewhere to the right of it. Above negative 21, it gets an open circle because it's just a less than, and we're going to shade to the left. So let's try some multi-step equations. So in number 13, in order to solve for x, we need to add or subtract something first. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. We get 3x is less than 9. And then we're going to divide by 3 on both sides of the symbol. So we get x is less than 3. So on our number line, we're going to put 3. We're going to put 0 somewhere to the left of it. And then we have x is less than 3. So at 3, we're going to have an open circle because there's no bar underneath. And we're going to shade to the left. Number 14. Negative 2/3 k plus, minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 1. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. Negative 2/3 k is greater than or equal to 4. Now to get k by itself, we need to multiply by our reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by negative 3 over 2. And we get k is less than or equal to, we have to flip our sign because we multiplied by a negative number. And we get negative 12 over 2. So k is less than or equal to negative 6. So on our number line, we're going to have negative 6. We're going to have 0 somewhere to the right of it. And at negative 6, it's going to be a closed dot. And we're going to shade to the left. 15. We have 13 is less than x over 5 minus 11. So we're going to add 11 to both sides. 24 is less than x over 5. So to get x by itself, we're going to multiply 5 on both sides. And we get 120 is less than x. Remember, in order to graph that, our variable must be first. So we get x is greater than 120. So on our number line, we're going to place 120. And we're going to put 0 somewhere to the left of it because 120 is greater than 0. At 120, we're going to have an open circle. And we're going to shade to the right because it's a greater than. Number 16. Now there's parentheses, so in order to solve first, we need to distribute the 4 to both terms. Remember when you're distributing, you're multiplying. So we get 4x minus 20 is less than or equal to 8. So to solve for x, we're going to add 20 to both sides. We get 4x is less than or equal to 28 and divide by 4. So x is less than or equal to 7. So on our number line, we're going to put 7 and we're going to put 0 to the left of it because it's a positive number. So at 7, looking at our sign, it's going to be a closed dot because it's a less than or equal to, and then we're going to shade to the left. Number 17, in order to solve for x, we need to combine our like terms. We have these two x's that combine. Remember when they're on the same side of the symbol that we use the symbols, the signs they have to combine. So we have 9 is greater than negative 6x minus 3. So in order to solve for x, we're going to add 3 to both sides. And we get 12 is greater than negative 6x. We're going to divide both sides by negative 6. Now remember, when I divide by a negative number, I need to flip the symbol. So I now have 2, negative 2 is less than or equal to x. Now remember, you have to have your variable first in order to graph. So we're going to flip this one more time so we get x is greater than negative 2. So on the number line, I'm going to put negative 2 somewhere. I'm going to put 0 to the right of that because 0 is bigger than our negative number. And at negative 2, it's going to be an open circle. And then I'm going to shade to the right because it's a greater than sign. Number 18, the first thing we need to do is distribute the negative 6. So we get negative 6x minus 12 plus 7x is greater than or equal to 13. So we're going to combine the x terms together, and we get x minus 12 is greater than or equal to 13. I can add 12 to both sides. I get x is greater than or equal to 25. So on our number line, we're going to have 25 somewhere, and we're going to have our 0 to the left of that because 0 is smaller than our positive number. And at 25, it's going to be a closed dot, and I'm going to shade to the right. 19 and 20 have variables on both sides. So remember, in this case, we always want to try to get the variable to the left side. So I'm going to move 4x to both sides by adding 4x because it was negative. So we get 12x minus 7 is greater than or equal to 29. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So we get 12x is greater than or equal to 36. And then we're going to divide both sides by 12. We get x is greater than or equal to 3. So on the number line, we're going to place 3, and we're going to put 0 somewhere to the left of that. And then at 3, it's greater than or equal to, so it gets a closed dot, and then shade to the right. So let's try one more problem. In 20, there's 2 sets of parentheses, so we need to distribute. So we get 2x plus 10 is less than negative 3x minus 30. We're first going to add 3x to both sides because negative 3 is smaller, and we want to get the variable to the left side. So we get 5x plus 10 is less than negative 30. Subtract 10 from both sides. 5x is less than negative 40. Divide both sides by 5. X is less than negative 8. So on our number line, we're going to have negative 8. Somewhere to the right, we're going to have 0. Above the negative 8, because it's a less than, we're going to have an open circle, and then we're going to shade to the left.